Hello bookworms, I'm Becca, and today I'm doing a spoiler-free review of Not Otherwise Specified by Hannah Moskowitz. Not Otherwise Specified follows 17-year-old Etta, who feels like she doesn't fit in at school and pretty much anywhere in her small Nebraska town. Etta identifies as bisexual, so she isn't really considered gay enough to hang out with her lesbian friend group, especially after having a relationship with a guy. And she's currently in recovery for an eating disorder, but wasn't sick enough to be given an actual diagnosis, so in her medical records it still says eating disorder not otherwise specified. Etta dreams of going to New York City and attending a music theater performing arts high school for her final year of high school, and through preparations for the auditions she meets 14-year-old Bianca, who is also auditioning for the performing arts school and in Etta's support group for eating disorders. I definitely have a feeling that this book could be considered triggering for some people, so always just make sure that you're wary of the content that you are taking in and reading. I knew very early on that this book would be a 5-star rating for me, and as I read it, it just kept getting better and better, which was awesome. Hannah Moskowitz's style of writing was so relatable that after I finished it, it definitely ended up being one of those books that I didn't realize that I needed until I read it. Theater is a really big part of my life, so it was super interesting to see a character that was so drawn to it as well. There were obviously a lot of references to musicals, especially ones that I actually knew about, like A Chorus Line, which had a huge influence on the character. So it was really cool and added a new level of relatability to me because I felt like I actually knew what the character was going through, and it was so cool to read from that perspective. It just made everything feel that much more real to me, and I definitely wish that I could go to New York and audition for Brentwood because it seemed amazing. I really appreciated that while Etta grappled with her sexuality for the majority of the book, it definitely didn't end up defining her, which I'm pretty sure was the point. There was something just undeniably human about the struggles that Etta and the other characters really struggled with for the majority of the book, and I really loved watching them grow and become more themselves throughout the course of the book, if that makes sense. The overall character arc was absolutely amazing, and by the end, it felt like I was reading a completely different character, but not in a way that came off as cliche. Even the way the eating disorders were handled felt so real, which made them all the more tragic to read. Especially Etta's perspective on her eating disorder, it was so different from any other books that I've read about this topic. We got to see Etta struggle with her relationship with food, but she ended up taking Bianca under her wing, who was much more sick than Etta was at the time, and it was really devastating to read. This book was just so good, and I feel like no matter how much I talk about it, I just can't do it justice in this little review. It was absolutely incredible. It made me feel for the characters so deeply, like way more deeply than I've felt about characters in such a long time. And even though I just finished it, it put me in a huge reading slump because, my heart. So basically, you need to read Not Otherwise Specified, but be warned that it's gonna make you want to absolutely devour the rest of Hannah Moskowitz's books, just like I do right now.